Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Ku Lee. I'm the Director of Targeted Outreach at the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. We're also known as the DFPI. Thank you for joining our webinar. Again, our webinar today is Paying for Higher Education, Trade Schools, and Apprenticeships. It's a great, fantastic, really full of great content webinar. But before we get started, I know it's right at noon. I want to give everyone another, let's say, 2 minutes. I'm going to give everyone another 2 minutes to join in. So just be patient. We're going to jump in here in about 2 minutes. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Ku Lee. I'm the Director of Targeted Outreach at the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, also known as the DFPI. For this webinar, it's our monthly financial education webinar. This topic is paying for higher education, trade schools, and apprenticeships. We have a great partnership with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards. Let's jump right in. A lot of great content today, and thank you for joining. So let's go. A little bit of housekeeping. First of all, your cameras and microphones have been turned off for this webinar. If you do have any questions, please submit it into the Zoom's Q&A feature. We have a dedicated time right at the end where we're going to answer your questions, so feel free to submit those there. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the presenters, and they do not necessarily reflect those of the DFPI. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. This is not financial advice and does not replace any independent or professional judgment. We're a really big advocate of you doing your own research, and by coming to this webinar, that's what you're doing. So thank you. The DFPI does not assume responsibility for the completeness of this presentation and information, but we've gone through these slides very recently and made sure that everything's up to date. Again, this information is as up to date as the moment of this recording. For more information, you could always visit the DFPI's website, dfpi.ca.gov. You could also email my team, outreach@dfpi.ca.gov. Okay, really quickly, I want to talk about the DFPI, who we are, what we do. So the DFPI, our purpose is to maintain a fair, healthy, and fair marketplace for all Californians. We do this by regulating a variety of financial services, products, and professionals. So we license, regulate, oversee a number of these financial organizations. And we also provide presentations just like this throughout the state of California. We try to bring awareness of fraud, scams, and also a lot of other financial education and literacy topics to consumers. For more information, you can always visit us again at dfpi.ca.gov/consumers. Okay, with that, I want to welcome Nicole Picata from the Division of Apprenticeship Standards from the Department of Industrial Relations, who is going to do a presentation on registered apprenticeships in California. Nicole, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I do appreciate that. I'd like to say first, thank you very much to DFPI for this opportunity to present the landscape of apprenticeship. As mentioned, I am Nicole Picata. I'm a strategic business advisor. I do sit in this division, and the purpose that my purpose is to advise stakeholders and bring stakeholders together and tell them what it means and what an apprenticeship means. Next. So as mentioned, I am with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards, that's DAS. I sit in the Apprenticeship and Workforce Innovation Unit, and we assist employers in identifying strong workforce solutions, identifying and creating pathways for employers to build a skilled workforce. This is all pushed through because of our governor, Governor Gavin Newsom, who has this audacious goal of 500,000 apprentices by the year 2029. And we know that the way that we're going to do that is not through just your traditional roles of apprenticeship, but also looking in those new and innovative roles. Next. Right now, though, our apprenticeships were starting to grow. Last year at this time, we were about 83,000. And within that year, you can see we've grown up to 93,000, over 93,000 registered apprentices. And we see that we are making that goal. This data is available on our dashboard, our public dashboard, Tableau, which you'll be able to see again at the end of the presentation. Our information is there, and you can always visit our website. Our new revamped website has this information on here. And our next slide. Right here, we're just giving you a snapshot of some of our amazing employer partners. As you can see, Robert Half, Slow Partners, Lockheed Martin, IBM. These are just some of our employee partners that we're looking into and having conversations with, building up programs in different occupations. We are sector specific. I currently sit in the education sector, which looks at occupations such as early childhood care providers, that T through K teacher space, and CTE, career technical. But some of my partners, they sit in the healthcare space. We're looking at LVN to RN nurses. Some of the other occupations that you may see that are coming and rising are the community healthcare workers and the IT space. There are a lot of spaces in advanced manufacturing. These are all sectors that we are specifically focused on. Next. Some of this education, this again is just a snapshot of our educational partners. A part of an apprenticeship, which you'll see coming up, is who is in that landscape, who makes the apprenticeships happen, who develops those programs, and you'll see who those stakeholders are. And this is just a snapshot of what we call our LEA, our local educational agencies, and some of the partners who are providing that RSI or related supplemental training. If I do use any acronyms, I'll make sure to spell them out so that you'll have a clear understanding. Next. So you may ask yourself, what is an apprenticeship? What does that mean? Well, it is a structured mechanism of providing on-the-job training along with related supplemental instruction. Here in California, let's go back. Here in California, there are some requirements. So that on-the-job training, or what we call OJT, we look at that as being on the job for a minimum of 2,000 hours, and that's learning on the job. If it is a competency-based program where you're looking at time and trying to reach certain competencies, that's equivalent of about 1,000 hours of on the job. The related supplemental instruction, the RSI, we do recommend a minimum of 144 hours of classroom-based instruction, which is equivalent of a 3 unit semester in your college course. And of course, that paid wage, which is most important and distinguishes an apprenticeship. That paid wage, the apprentice is fully paid. They're a W-2 employee. There is at least one progressive wage built in within the apprenticeship programs. Sometimes a program may have more than one. And ideally, we work with partners to structure that you're receiving benefits. All of this matters because it gives that advantage to the individual, the potential apprentice, so that they're alleviating some of the conflicts of going to school and not being able to work full time. Next. As I mentioned earlier, an apprenticeship is structured either in a time base, a competency base, or a hybrid base. That time base is going to measure that number of hours of the OJT, the on-the-job training, whereas a competency base, it measures both that you're able to demonstrate your efficiencies and capacity to do that specific task within the allotted time of the program. So if that program were in 18 months, that you would be able to complete those particular competencies based in that time. A hybrid, again, brings those two together, is a combination of your time-based program and your hybrid program. And each program is going to make a choice on whether it's a time-based, competency-based, or hybrid. As an example, in my space for education, those are generally a competency-based program, that early childhood education space. But there may be other examples in different sectors where they're going to be time-based. Oftentimes you have that in your non-traditional sectors. Next. You may ask yourself, but doesn't it sound like an internship? What's the difference? Well, in an internship, what it does is it's exposing you to an industry. But an apprenticeship is cultivating those skills. You're actually doing that particular occupation for that sector. Generally, the length of an apprenticeship averages at least a year and may be long, but an internship generally is a little bit less, maybe about 6 months, between 6 months to 12 years. Compensation, oftentimes with an internship, it may be paid or there may be a stipend associated with it. That pay may be a stipend. It's not an actual wage. Whereas the compensation in an apprenticeship is an actual wage. As I will continue to say, and I can't stress enough, that is a W-2 employer, and hopefully there is benefits that are tied to it. The supportive partners that you have in an internship, sometimes they could be the educational institution working with the employer. But when you have an apprenticeship, a registered apprenticeship program, you're having those labor agencies, the educational, sometimes the union, which is representing the employee. You'll have community-based programs, again, who provide wraparound services. An apprenticeship model brings stakeholders to the table to alleviate those conflicts and those challenges that an individual may have on a traditional journey. College credits with an internship. Sometimes there are some college credit, but usually there are not. With an apprenticeship, more and more you're finding the designs of apprenticeship are giving not only the completion of the certificate of completion for that occupation, but you're also finding that partnering with the educational institutions, apprentices are coming out sometimes with an AA and other degrees. And the funding opportunity, an internship, the funding opportunities are limited. Most of them are coming from private entities, but funding opportunity in the apprenticeship world continues to expand. Next, the apprenticeship stakeholders. This is another important point to grasp when you're understanding the landscape, because this is how it's expanded. If you look at this, for a registered apprenticeship program, you need one employer, one educational partner, the government to register it, and the apprentice. those are the 4 entities that you need to actually complete the program. But as we see, or build a program, I should say, not complete, but actually build a program. But as you see, there's this yellow circle that says intermediary. What's important here is that intermediary is that community-based organization. And this is where apprenticeship has begun to expand. Bringing in community-based organizations and other partners, we're able to address all of the needs of that individual or for the program, the stakeholders for the program. And that's what makes it important, because in that space, we're able to provide support. Let's say that there were problems with daycare, that this is a space that the program is able to speak to and address it. It's also a space that the apprenticeship comes back to, the apprentice, if there is needs to, comes back and speaks to this committee that should they have any issues or any problems. So there's always a space for the apprentice to come back to. The other part that's not here, and I think that it should be, is that an apprenticeship also has a mentor. May I go back to that last slide? My apologies. It's not here either. That mentorship is an important aspect of it, because in this program, mentorship is what helps and carries the apprentice should they have any difficulties. And that is spelled out in your program. I'll go ahead on and skip. Go ahead, one more. Thank you. Okay. So a little bit about some funding resources. And again, if you go to our website, what you're able to see is we revamp how we're doing funding and how we're structuring funding. What we want to look at is what funding is available, what specific funding is available for apprenticeship. And in this case, I've pulled out just 3 of them. One of them is a CAI grant, which is the California Apprenticeship Initiative grant. Those are quarterly grants that come out. I love the way that they're structured. Planning, implementation, and expansion. I like to call that my own acronym of PIE. When developing an apprenticeship program, it is important that you begin looking at your funding opportunities in that way. Where am I going to, what funding is available to help plan it? Is there funding available to help implement? And what expansion programs, what expansion funding is there? Adjacent funding may not say specifically that it's funding sources that are not specific for registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship, but can be used for them. So like the workforce pathway for youth or the learning alignment employment program. Those are adjacent. And then we have the possible funding. Again, possible funding are categorized by sector and population, and it highlights sources that can also be used for workforce. It's not specific, but it can, some of these fundings that are listed here, and also if you go to our website, can be used in that apprenticeship landscape. Next. So I know, so what's the benefits? As an apprentice, we know the benefits. It's giving that wage. It's giving that opportunity. The cost of your tuition is reduced because anything in that apprenticeship program, that tuition is being paid for you. But the benefits to employers, what does it do for employers? For those employers out there, it does instill loyalty. It builds a talent pool for you. And that rate of the return on investment, depending on which studies you look at, can average between $1.42 and $1.50. But the most important thing is that the training is customized for the employer to meet the employer's needs while we're building a skilled workforce. Next. So by partnering with us, which is what I hope that you will want to do, if you want to know more information about this, if you'd like to take a little bit more time to understand this landscape, please reach out to us. We're public servants. My job here is to make those connections, bring the right partners to you. If you are an apprentice or potential apprentice out there looking for an apprenticeship, please, I do welcome you to take a look at our website. Make sure you do a search. You can search by occupation. We are in 5 different sectors: healthcare, IT, business services, education, transportation. I apologize. Let's count it as 6, because the arts and entertainment, I don't want to leave them out. So please, we're here to facilitate those partnerships, educate the public on what it is, what an apprenticeship means, why it's important in our community, how it helps grow your own community. If you're an employer out there, again, our services are free. We're public servants, and we're here to support you. And with that, I think, Mr. Lee, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Fantastic presentation and a lot of really great information. There's a lot of questions coming in right now, and I'm going to hold them off until at the very end where we have a dedicated Q&A session. But again, as a reminder, if you do have any questions, please submit it into the Zoom's Q&A feature. With that, I do want to hand it over to Selena Damian. She's the DFPI's Student Loan Servicing Ombudsperson to talk about some student loan debt.
Thank you, Ku, and thank you, Nicole. That was great information. I even learned a little something, but thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm going to jump over and talk a little bit about student loans and student loan debt. And so this is for folks that are not going the apprenticeship route, that are going the more traditional route. And so this is how much debt do we have in California? First of all, in California, we have 4 million borrowers that owe $141 billion of student loan debt, with the average debt load of about $30,000 and an average monthly payment of $203. And this majority of this $141 billion of debt, it is federal student loan debt. The majority of debt is held by borrowers between the ages of 35 to 49, and our default rate, even though it's not the highest, it's at 7%. It's still considered higher, on the higher range. In the United States, borrowers owe $1.78 trillion of student loan debt, and this is the second highest category, consumer category amount behind mortgages, mortgage and credit card debt. So 1.78, and it's growing on a daily basis. Next, please. So who can access federal financial aid, including federal student loans? So any institution that is a Title IV institution. So that could be an accredited public or private school that is Title IV, can offer these programs, these financial aid programs. So this includes federal grants and federal student loans. So what does the accreditation mean? It means that schools have gone through a screening process and have met certain regulations, certain requirements. So the Department of Education has certain accreditation institutions that accredit these schools. And so they have to go, these schools apply to become a Title IV school, and then Department of Education has a list of all the schools. You can look up an institution and find out if they are accredited. So if your school offers the FAFSA, or when you're applying and they have a financial aid office and have you fill out a FAFSA, then you know they are accredited. You can look at the National Center for Education statistics, again, look at information of who's accredited or not. And then here in California, the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education also licenses private institutions that also offer Title IV, have Title IV funding and offer federal financial aid. So you can look those schools up through their website as well. So any Title IV institution, private or public, can offer federal student loans and grants. You'll see right now in the next few slides. Next, please. So some things to consider when you're choosing a college or a program. It doesn't necessarily have to be a four-year college, just any program, higher education program. Consider the quality of the school. The good thing is that now everything is online. You can look at all their graduation and transfer rates for four-year universities, or for undergrad. The four-year undergrad degree is a myth now. Most students are graduating within 6 years. So that's really important to know because you want to determine how long it's going to take you and how much it's going to cost you. Also, transfer rates. If you're attending and have a plan to pursue further education, you want to know what the transfer rates are for that school. Consider the student completion and job placement rates if they are a vocational training school, right? So you want to know if they are doing what they are promising. Very important, read all the information in the school catalog. So read the school policies, attendance policies, leave of absence, cancellation, refund policies. Because remember, if you take on federal student loans, and even if you don't complete the program, after a certain time, if that money is not used or returned, you owe that money. So you are not able to go back and then say, I wasn't able to complete the program for whatever reason. It's very hard to discharge student loans. So again, just be aware of what you're taking on. Read the advertising material. And then look at their enrollment agreement as well. So again, it's going to have the total cost of the school, refundable charges. Look at the school syllabus. Really, what am I getting into, right? Make a plan. Don't just select a program or a school because it's in a nice city, because of the location, because the friend goes there, right? Really look at if it's a program that's going to fit your needs and your career goals. Then you want to determine the school's net cost. So the net cost is the college's cost of attendance minus any free aid, the grants or scholarships that are received. You're able to do a rough estimate, again, using a lot of the universities and colleges have a net cost calculator on their site. You won't be able to know the exact cost until you actually enroll, but at least it gives you a good idea. Very important. Also compare potential careers and salaries. The average starting salary of a bachelor's degree candidate is $58,862. You want to make sure that you are enrolling in a school and that you are taking on debt that you will be able to pay off based on your career. So if you're going to a super elite private institution and you're taking on $100,000 of debt, but it's a degree that may not make $100,000 a year, then you might want to rethink that. So the rule of thumb is don't take out more debt than you plan to make the first year of graduation, right? So again, that's why it's important to enroll early on in career exploration programs. You don't want to go into a program and say, this is what I want to do. And then on your first day on the job, you say, oh, wait, never mind. I don't want to do this. That's why it's important. All these, community college programs, even in high school, they have a lot of career exploration programs now that high school students can take because they may be determined to go into one field and then they find something that is they're really passionate about, and they may have a change of mind. And we know that at a young age, that does tend to happen. So, and then one thing always, you have to look at this debt as a investment, right? So you have to look at return of investment on investment. So again, never borrow more than you expect to earn your first year after graduation. And then how much earnings can you expect versus how much the degree costs. So you are making an investment. Student loans can be a great tool to help supplement the cost of higher education, but really plan out and understand what you're taking on. Next, please. So what type of higher education institutions do we have in California? And here we have 116 community colleges. You're going to have these throughout the states, in a lot of the cities. These are going to be less expensive. You can earn an associate to transfer to a four-year university. We are also starting to see that community colleges are now offering bachelor's degrees. So many of these community colleges also are offering free tuition. They have the Promise program here in San Diego. We have the San Diego Promise program. It's free tuition for first generation, certain other students. So you can always go that route. Again, these are for associates and then some four-year, some bachelor's degrees. And then as Nicole mentioned, now they're also partnering with some of these apprenticeship programs. So just really, it's good to explore what options are available. They're really trying to increase their enrollment because they had a decrease in enrollment during COVID. So they're starting to offer a lot more for students. They've even launched the I Can Go to College campaign. That's a community college campaign. And then you're going to have your Cal 23 in California, your Cal State colleges, your CSUs, publicly funded. They're cheaper than the UCs. You can earn your bachelor's or master's degree. And then 11 of the UCs, also publicly funded. They are going to be more expensive than the CSUs. You can earn your bachelor's or master's degree. Then you're going to have your private colleges. These are not publicly funded, and they may cost more than public colleges and universities. So this could include anything from online private colleges to short-term, maybe more certificate programs. So these are all going to be private colleges. And as long as they're a Title IV, they have Title IV accreditation, they are going to be eligible for financial aid, federal financial aid funds, and will be able to provide those to the students. So if you get the FAFSA when you enroll, if you're told to fill out a FAFSA, then you know it's a Title IV institution. Next, please. And then what type of degrees, in addition to, again, the apprenticeship programs, if you decide to go this route, you have your vocational certificates. These are going to be 6 months to a year programs. They have the required courses. Some of them may require employment as well. These certificates are granted by colleges or adult career centers for specific occupations. You have your AAs, your associate's degrees, 1 to 2 year degrees, bachelor's, which are 4-year degrees that are going to be the most popular, are your bachelor's of arts or bachelor's of science. Then you have your master's, which are 1 to 3 year degrees. After your bachelor's, that are more management level career and more for specialized roles. And then your doctoral programs, which are 2 to 10 year degrees. It's the highest degree you can earn in academia. And so this is just to give you a snapshot of how long you could be possibly pursuing your higher education if you decide to go any of these routes. Next, please. Again, it all starts with the FAFSA. In order for you to qualify for federal financial aid funds, you're going to fill out that FAFSA. If you are a California resident and you are undocumented, we have the CADA, which is the California DREAM Act application. It provides financial aid for undocumented students here in the state. This is a program administered by the California Student Aid Commission, and these are not federal. This is not federal financial aid, but it will be offered to you if you need. Next, please. And then what type of financial aid can you receive? Again, this could be for a certificate program up to a master's, right? So your free financial aid, it's going to be accessed through the FAFSA. You're going to have your grants. These are going to be federal grants and state grants, and also some school grants. The schools use the same information. Most of the schools use the same information from the FAFSA in order to find out what you qualify for. So grants, that's going to be the aid that you want. It's awarded on the basis of family's financial need. And then also it's going to be determined on what school you go to, right? So they're going to look at how much the school costs and then the need, and then they'll offer you those grants based on that. You'll have your federal work study, which is money that you earn from a job to help you pay for school expenses. Typically for your university, it's for students. They can work on campus throughout different facilities on campus, and then that money goes directly to pay for tuition. But again, this money does not have to be paid back. Then you're going to have your scholarships. Some scholarships that are directly from the school will be, you can just apply through the FAFSA, but many of them are going to be, a student will have to apply on their own. So scholarships, a student can start applying in 9th grade. You don't have to wait until you're in college or until you make a decision of where you're going. So scholarships are offered, are available every year at all times of the year. And as I said, you can start early, 9th grade. This is aid that gets awarded on a basis of academic, athletic merit, talent, or a particular area of study. It doesn't have to be repaid. And then you can look up, the only thing I have to say about scholarships is that you should never have to pay to help find scholarships. There's a lot of organizations, a lot of websites that help students go through you want to go through the college, through the school, that you can find really good scholarships. And they can be for anything from academic to I mean, the weirdest thing, you could be like a son of a farmer, be left-handed, I mean, there's just so many scholarships out there. You would be surprised. So don't think that because you're not a 4.0 student or not on the, you know, just the top academics, then that you're not going to qualify for anything. There are many scholarships and a lot of them that don't get used. So very important, understand your financial aid package and access all the free aid first, and then collect those scholarships if you're able to. Next, please. Through the FAFSA, you will also have access to student loans, federal student loans. Now, this is aid that has to be paid back. And the reason why it's so important to really know the difference is that sometimes the way that it's packaged to students, it's hard to determine what is the free aid and what is the money that has to be paid back. So it's really important that we are looking at those award letters carefully. It's all packaged together and you can accept, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. So federal student loans is money that is borrowed, again, to pay for tuition and expenses. Department of Education is your lender. So Department of Education is the bank that's letting you borrow this money. Has to be paid back with interest, and again, will be available for Title IV schools. You're going to have your private loans. Now, private loans, you're not going to access through the FAFSA. This is pretty much once you exhaust your federal student loans, students have the option of accessing private loans, applying on their own, except for school loans. Sometimes they'll offer them to students through the FAFSA. So these are made by lenders such as a bank, a credit union, state agencies, or a school. So in the case of where I said CADA has that financial aid, that would be considered private because it has nothing to do with Department of Education, or the schools may directly also provide loans to the students. These are going to have varied interest rates and limits to borrowing, and many times for students, private loans will require a cosigner because they don't have an extensive credit history yet. So a borrower can have a mix of federal and private loans, and you are able to refinance your federal student loans, those from the Department of Education, into private loans with Discover, Sallie Mae. They may offer you certain deals if you lower interest rate, things like that. But just understand that once you convert your federal student loan or refinance into a private loan, you can't revert back. So you would be missing out on a lot of the benefits, repayment plans that are available for borrowers with student loans. Next, please. And then some key terms, just really important. It's part of reading your, like I said, when you're researching your school, you're reading all the documents. It's the same thing here. Make sure that you're reading those master promissory notes when you're taking on the loans. Everything's digitalized now, and I know it's easy to just sign and sign and sign, but really understand what it is that you're taking on. For any type of loan, interest, understand what interest is. If it's going to cost, how much more is this loan going to cost you in the long run, right? So it's just how much they're charging to borrow this money. For federal student loans, the rates are set by Congress each year. You can look on the student aid website and you can look at what the interest will be for every type of loan. They've just released the numbers for the following year. And in student loans, you have what's called simple interest. So they're charging interest on a daily basis on these loans. So they tend to, the interest tends to make these balances go up higher quicker. Capitalization with student loans, it's unpaid interest that's added to your loan balance after periods of non-payment. So just understand that there will be times where your balance may grow even more if the interest is not paid because of capitalization. Grace period is when if a student is not enrolled more than part-time or after graduation, it's typically 6 months, 6 to 9 months where they have to start paying their loan back. And this is for federal loans, and then interest for subsidized loans starts accruing after the grace period. And then forbearance or deferment is once you're in repayment, you can request these pauses basically in payments, but they do for certain situations, but they do continue to accrue interest. So be very careful about putting your loans on forbearance and deferment, especially if you're able to just get them on a repayment plan, on a low payment, even $0 payment plan based on the income. So in-school deferment is automatic though. If you are in school, they're going to automatically place your loan in deferment. If you aren't in school deferment, you can make payments to, you can make interest-only payments to avoid interest accrue or the balance from growing based on the interest. Next, please. And then what type of federal loans are offered? So after 2010, all loans that are being offered, all federal loans are direct loans. So you're going to have two types, subsidized and unsubsidized. But basically, you're going to see the word direct on your loans. It's subsidized means that these are available to undergrad students, and it means that the interest is not accruing when the borrower is in school or when the student is attending school or when they at least have time. So the interest will start accruing after that grace period. The clock starts on that interest. Unsubsidized loans, the interest starts accruing from the minute that the student accepts the aid. So unsubsidized loans, they're going to be a little more costly. Then you're gonna have your direct graduate plus loans. These are available to students pursuing graduate or professional degrees, and they are unsubsidized. And then you're gonna have your parent plus loans, which are available to parents of undergrad students. And again, these are unsubsidized. The direct grad and direct plus both have origination fees. Direct grad do have a grace period, but parent plus loans don't. So one thing that I always just just want to make sure everyone understands is that parent plus loans can be a little bit riskier for parents only because these cannot be transferred back to the student. The interest rates are higher, and there is also no limit. So if the student is attending an elite private university and the parent is a lower to moderate income earner, they will let you take out as much as the student needs. So they won't look at the credit unless it's a really derogatory, they have a really negative derogatory credit. They will give you the loan, and that's not something that you would see with cars, with mortgages. So with plus loans, they'll give you whatever the child needs, and they won't consider your income, and immediately that needs to be paid back. So again, just something to keep in mind for parents. I'm working with parents all the time that they're trying to retire and they can't because they have these really, really huge payments. So just keep that in mind. And then direct consolidation loans is when you can put all your direct loans or direct grad plus loans all into one. So because you are taking out loans for a period of time, sometimes borrowers end up with 10, 15 loans, and you can just combine them all into a direct consolidation loan, and it's still a federal loan, and you're just going to have now one interest and one student loan servicer. Next, please. And then prior to repayment, and this first bullet here, I think we should be doing this every year, not just right before you graduate. You should be in any program, really. If you're taking on debt, reviewing your student loan history, and then finding out how much you're using up, right? Because even for your grants and for other financial aid, you're using it every year, right? You're exhausting more and more of it. So you want to make sure you're on the right track. You want to know, okay, this year I borrowed this much. You want to know the current balance and the interest rates for each loan, your loan types. Are they subsidized, unsubsidized? As I said, you can make interest-only payments on those unsubsidized loans. So that might help alleviate some of the costs later on. The name of the loan servicer for each loan. You're going to know your servicer as soon as you pretty much take on the loan. The same website where you filled out the FAFSA, that's studentaid.gov. It's going to have your student loan information. The Department of Education is the lender, but they will assign you to a student loan servicer. There's 4 right now that are federal student servicers, and you're basically assigned to this company that's going to help you make payments, manage your loans. If you want to enroll in an IDR plan or in a repayment plan, if you want to enroll in a forgiveness plan, they're the ones you're going to be dealing with. So when you start repayment, you're not going to be dealing directly with Department of Education. So know who your servicer is. So you know when you get that bill, you say, okay, this is my payment, not just some random, spam letter or something. And create an account on the servicer portal, and then know the end of your grace periods and the repayment start date. So again, It's important to track, make sure you complete the mandatory exit counseling, check your credit report. Federal student loans will list the Department of Education as your lender. Many times these student loans are going to be the first experience with credit for many people, right? So you want to be doing that with any of your loans, right? Your private loans as well. You should be seeing to make sure that they're accurate. Make sure that, let's say for some reason they gave you money and it was too much, you returned it within the 120 days and it's still showing on your credit. You want to make sure that you are checking those. I have borrowers that contact me. They have loans that they took out many years ago and they don't know if they're private, federal, they can't find their information on studentaid.gov. I always say, look at your credit report and see what you have there. Because if they're Department of Education loans, you may find them there. And understand your responsibilities and options, right? You do have, this is a legal obligation that has to be paid back, these student loans, and then create a strategy to pay the debt and then track any future debt, understanding your repayment options, and then the goal is to avoid delinquency and default. So that's why we are doing all this tracking and preparation beforehand. Next, please. Why do you want to stay on track? Well, because you want to avoid delinquency and default. So delinquency is for federal loans. The first day after you miss your student loan payment and your loan becomes past due. If you are delinquent on your student loan payment for more than 90 days, then it gets reported to the credit bureaus. And as we know, that's not a good thing. For default, for a federal loan, you're considered on default after when you don't make a payment for 9 months or 270 days. The consequences of default includes losing eligibility for additional federal student aid. So if you want to go back to school, enroll in a different program, even if the school has Title IV eligibility, you will not be able to access those funds. Reporting to the credit bureaus, wage garnishment, and withholding of tax refunds. Everyone always says, don't mess with the IRS. I say, don't mess with Department of Education as well, because going into they will not negotiate. It's different than with the private loan, with the credit card company. These are federal funds, and they will try to recover them however they can. Next, please. And then when you are in repayment, just some things to think about once you are out in the workforce. Even if you have some loan and then decide to attend an apprenticeship and now you're in an apprenticeship program, as long as you have federal student loans, these are the programs that are available to you. You have your PSLF, which is the most popular public service loan forgiveness. So borrowers who work in public service for 120 months or 10 years and are in repayment at the same time. So public service could be a nonprofit organization. It could be a city, state, county, federal, military. In the military, that's a qualifying employer. So they don't have to be consecutive, and then 120 payments while making these payments. While being employed, you can qualify for discharge of the remaining balance. And then teacher loan forgiveness for any of those that want to go into the teaching field. You have to work 5 complete and consecutive academic years in a low income school or educational service agency. You may be eligible for up to $17,500 in forgiveness. So you could use PSLF and the teacher loan forgiveness. You could use both of those programs or be enrolled, but you can't be enrolled at the same time. And then income-driven repayment forgiveness. This is, again, 25 years if you are paying your loans back on an income-based plan. Total permanent disability discharge for those that are totally and permanently disabled. And then borrower defense discharge if the school engaged in certain misconduct related to the making of a federal loan. That's why it's really important, why I said at the beginning, also check for the advertisement and all that information, because this will be important if, let's say, you go to attend a program and it was very misleading. All their advertising, they were saying you could get job placement and making all these promises, and then once you finish the program, they didn't follow through on those. If you have federal loans, this may be for you, but again, that's why it's going to be important that you that just keep all the documents and all the communication. And then I believe that's my portion. I'm handing it over to Ku. There it is. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Selena. A lot of really fantastic information from the DFPI's student loan servicing ombudsperson. I have have a slide later on which actually shows our contact information if you want to get contact with us. You have a lot of other questions. As a reminder, we do have a Q&A session at the very end. I'm going to fly through these slides. If you do have any questions, please submit it into the Q&A and we will answer it then. All right, trade schools. What is a trade school, right? It's also known as a vocational school or tech school. They're post-high school institutions. They focus on hands-on training and education in specific trades. So trades like nursing, welding, cosmetology, computer networking, etc. Key things to know about trade schools. They have a focus on practical skills. They usually have shorter programs, right? Things like 18-month programs, 12-month programs, that kind of thing, 24-month programs. And they're very career orientated. Sorry. So here's the big question, right? How do I pay for a trade school? And I put eligible in there in parentheses because not all of these ways apply to every trade school. So what I always recommend is for you to do your own research if you're looking into getting into a trade school to see what financing options they have available. So for the most part, most trade schools take the federal Pell Grants. There's also the Cal Grants. It's the C because they have a Cal Grant A, B, and C. There's a link to it to get more information about the Cal Grant C, which applies to trade schools. You have federal student loans. Many trade schools offer their own private student loans as well. But again, as Selena said, be very careful about that because private student loans do not have the same protections as federal student loans. If you have a ScholarShare or any kind of 529 account, those can also pay for trade schools. Certain trade schools offer work-study programs, scholarships. Some industries have different associations or partnerships with trade schools, so you could get a discount on tuition or even, again, scholarships that way. And another thing to look for, and a lot of students, parents don't think about this, but the states, cities, and even communities usually have different grants, sometimes associated with a trade school, and it's to help create more teachers or electricians or nurses. So always look that up. See if your state, city, county, or you have a local community grant that will help you pay for a trade school. Doing your research is so important in trade schools because I hear a lot of I hear a lot of people I talk to a lot of people who have difficulties with trade school. So what you want to do is you want to make sure to check the school's accreditation, right? You want to make sure it's legitimate. You want to check their job placement program, just like Selena was saying. You want to look at their program, see what they have available, make sure that they're promising things that they're going to be able to deliver on, right? You also want to definitely check the program costs and the financial aid. And as Selena said, make sure that when you graduate the trade school, you're going to be able to find a job that can pay for the financing that you take out. You definitely want to check the school's reputation and reviews, and of course the coursework and learning environment, right? I hear some horror stories about online trade schools that have a bad learning environment, or it's very difficult to get in touch with instructors. So you definitely want to check that out before committing to one. The other little thing to know is, never pay for a program or sign for a loan until you have checked alternative schools and programs, right? Not every trade school is the same. So you want to check different programs, see what's available. You also want to know how you could finance your education, right? Whether it's taking out a loan or you could pay for it as you go. Make sure they accept your 529 account, right? Make sure your ScholarShare 529 or other 529 accounts will pay for the trade school, or any kind of grants you get are accepted at your trade school. Also, big one here, you want to visit the campus if the trade school has a campus, or at least talk to a financial aid counselor at the trade school. Many of them have that kind of counselor, and they could talk to you about how you can finance, what your different options are, and you don't want to just sign for a loan blindly. Okay, with that, I do want to plug ScholarShare 529 really quickly because I love the program. I have two ScholarShare 529 accounts for my boys. It's a tax advantage college savings plan offered by California. It allows residents from any state to participate and contribute. Contributions start at any amount, right? You can contribute as little as you want or as much as you want. There is certain limits though. Savings can be used for a variety of higher education expenses and programs in California or around the country. And right now they're having a promotion, right? There's a link there, scholarshare529.com/summer25. You could get a $25 bonus when you open a new ScholarShare 529 account between June 1st, August 31st, and I believe the caveat here is you have to deposit $250. But click on the link, learn more about it. It's a great program. I do have a couple of ScholarShare questions that were submitted to us in the Q&A. So before that, I just want to share some of our contact information. There's mine right there. I'm the Targeted Outreach Director for the DFPI. Selena Damien's information is here as well. She's the Student Loan Servicing or BUDS person for the DFPI. We also have Nicole Hakata, who's Strategic Business Advisor for the Division of Apprenticeship Standards with the Department of Industrial Relations. So please check out that our contact information. Let us know if you do have any questions. All right, we have a lot of questions in the Q&A. I'm going to go down them as fast as I can and see if my presenters here can help answer these. First question, how long are apprenticeships? Nicole?
Those vary. I can't turn on my camera, but those vary in length. But what's most important is that, there you are. What's most important is that at a minimum, you will be enrolled in the program 6 months and 1 day. However, the length of a program will vary. On average, I'd say between a year and 18 months. As you get higher in certain training, of course, they would last longer, as an example in the teacher space.
Great, thank you. Here's another apprenticeship question. Who pays for an apprenticeship? And what happens if an apprentice decides to quit the program?
Again, that is going to vary. The rules and regulations are built within the program. That is something, again, that we comb through and to make sure that an apprentice has a mechanism to go should there be any complaints or anything that they need to. Who pays for the apprentice? The employer pays the wage, and the program itself, that program sponsor, is ultimately responsible for paying that tuition. But again, there are mechanisms in California, especially through the community colleges, those are paid for within the program. Those courses are taken care of.
All right. Next question. Can any business offer an apprenticeship through your program?
Okay, so it's not my program. I am just here to register your program, the employer's program. So yes, any employer, community-based organization can look into registering their training and development program, and our services are free.
Awesome. You know, I love how many apprenticeship questions we have. This is great. Age limits for an apprentice?
So 16, you must be able to work here in California, and that minimum age is 16. However, something we didn't speak about is the pre-apprenticeships. We talked a little bit about career pathways, and that's what a pre-apprenticeship does. It allows an individual to explore pathways, occupational pathways, and it connects you with a apprenticeship program. So there is, the minimum age is 16. The maximum age, there is no maximum age, and a pre-apprenticeship, which targets some high school students as well, that gives you another opportunity for someone who may be under 16.
Very cool, very cool.
No wages attached to a pre-apprenticeship, by the way, just that experience.
Okay, next question. Are apprentices expected to pay for their training, or are the companies paying the apprentices for their time of training?
Again, this will vary. However, the apprentice is not expected to be paying for their training. They may have to pay for additional costs, and hopefully the program has worked out. If you're an electrician and there's additional costs you might have for tools, hopefully your program or the registered program has worked out mechanisms to help with those fundings. but the employer is paying the wage. And the program sponsor, which means all of the entities who are behind that program that's being developed, there are mechanisms that they find out, that they develop before the program is administered to find out how to pay for the tuition. So that's all done behind house.
Great, I love it. Okay, I know we're right at 1 o'clock. I do want to answer some 529 questions really quickly. These were submitted to us before the webinar during the registration. So this one says, can 529 funds be spent on off-campus housing for the student beneficiary? If so, are there limits to how? So I can't answer this question directly. I did email my 529 ScholarShare 529 contact for a specific answer, but I'm putting a link into the chat. So this resources has an FQA that talks more about it. What I will say is this. From what I understand, the answer is yes. 529 funds can be spent on off-campus housing. However, there's a limit, and I think the limit is based on how much on-campus housing would cost, right? So let's just say you have students with a 529 account, they could be going to on-campus housing, and it would cost them, I don't know, $20,000 a year. But they decided to live off campus. So then they would be able to pay for off-campus housing up to $20,000 because that's how much it would cost them to live on campus. Of course, I will get you in contact with our 529 specialists so they can answer that a little more specific. I know there's a lot of nuance there. Here's one that's I've found really interesting. I heard that unused 529 funds can be transferred to a beneficiary's Roth IRA account. Is this correct? The answer is yes. As of this year, by the way, if you have a beneficiary that doesn't go to college, they can, again, I'm going to send the contact info for our 529 specialist, but the answer is yes. They can roll over their 529 account into a Roth IRA if it's unused. By the way, you can also transfer 529 accounts to a new beneficiary, okay? So please check that out if you're really interested in it. I have another question here. I have a question here about Cal Grants. Can anyone apply for Cal Grants? The answer is yes. Putting a link in the chat to talk more about the Cal Grants. There are restrictions, but check out that link. There are certain restrictions to being eligible for Cal Grants. Here's an apprenticeship question. How much do apprentices get paid? I guess who decides that?
The program sponsor would make that decision, but it ultimately lies in the employer's hands and sometimes a collective bargaining agreement. But please, I welcome anyone to reach out to me. I would love to have an in-depth conversation. I love the questions.
Yeah, these are really great. I'm going to hold off on some of these other questions from 529 because it's mostly because I can't answer them directly, but I will share our 529 contact and she can definitely answer these. One last question, I think, for apprenticeships, and I think it's a good question. I know you talked about the age limits for apprenticeships, but what other qualifications are there for someone who wants to get into an apprenticeship program?
On our website, you can take a look at the particular program. Each program has their own requirements. Again, this is based on the needs of the employer. So there are some that may require a license. There are some that may require a high school diploma. Look at the individual program to identify what are those requirements.
And I think they could search for different apprenticeship opportunities on your website as well.
Yes, on our website, and I can put it in here, but it is right there on our website. Find a program. If you just go over to find a program, you can look by sector. Don't worry, keep scrolling down if you don't find your sector. And then there you can identify which program to reach out and who to contact.
Okay. And that is it for our questions. I don't see any new ones coming in. With that, I just want to wrap it up really quickly and let you know that next month we have another webinar coming up. It's protecting and managing your online data. It's going to be a fantastic webinar talking about the importance of managing your data online and deleting your data if you're not using it, so it doesn't become a victim to data breach, that kind of thing. Subscribe to our newsletter if you can. This webinar is being recorded and it will be published to our YouTube channel. I'm going to send a follow-up email after this webinar, which will include a link to the YouTube video, as well as a copy of the slides. With that, I want to say thank you to Nicole and thank you to Selena for joining us and presenting some fantastic information. Thank you all for joining this webinar. I know we went a little bit over, but please join our next one. And we got a heat wave going out there. Please stay cool. Please take care of yourself and each other. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone.